How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. I'm here, Slavia Prague preview. Massive game for us Arsenal fans. Massive game for the Arsenal all round. I'm here with a guest today, Euro expert Alex. How's it going, Alex?
Doing very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
No worries, my man. No worries. To be honest, I'm very interested in what you have to say for Slavia Prague, because even though they've knocked out a couple British sides in Leicester and Rangers, I don't know too much about them. You know, a lot of people are worried just off the back of those two names being knocked out by them, and not necessarily about the club and who they are themselves. I believe they're unbeaten this season in the league.
Yeah, they're actually unbeaten in 37 league matches, which stretches back to last season.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite 49, you know, that magic number. Arsenal, but it's a number we could very well do with at the club right now. 37 games without a loss domestically in their league. Tell us more about them, Alex. What should we worry about?
Okay, so Slavia Prague, like you were saying, not many people know about the team, and it feels like they've come from nowhere, right? Some Chelsea fans might know them because they actually played Chelsea in the Europa League 2 years ago. What Slavia Prague are is quite deceptive. So I assume you guys are going to be thinking for this game, you're probably thinking like quite a defensive side. You guys are Arsenal, you're the Premier League team. You're going to be the favourites quite clearly. They're going to sit back. It's going to be quite surprising because they have the attitude of a bigger team. Against Leicester and against Rangers, the way they beat them is they play quite a pressing side, quite a pressing style. And it kind of goes into the manager. Now, I won't bore you guys with any statistics that are too in-depth or anything, because this is, at the end of the day, a Czech Republic team, and I don't want to bore anyone on. But their manager, Pierre-Emerick Trubisovsky, really highly rated manager who puts Klopp as his idol. And since he's been with Slavia Prague in 2017, they got to the quarterfinal Europa League, played Chelsea and lost, I think it was like 5-3 on aggregate.
Yeah. And
then they were drawn in the group of death with Inter, Dortmund and Barcelona in the Champions League last season. Don't really need to tell you what happened there. But then this season, they've done really well. They've got out of the group, which included Bayer Leverkusen and Nice. They've played Rangers and Leicester and dispatched them pretty easily. But you might think there's going to be a few, maybe it's on the weight of a few really powerful individual players or anything. It's actually just a really well-coached team that's deceptively top quality, and it's something I think Arsenal will be surprised by.
You say surprised, and I agree with you. There's going to be a lot of fans there that don't know much about them, and they're going to say low block. They're going to look to counter us and whatnot. But the thing is, I know Arsenal Football Club, and I know our reputation in Europe has gone downhill as much as it has gone in this country. So I think Slavia Prague might be looking at this game off the back of a 3-0 home loss to Liverpool. I know it's Liverpool, but it was still embarrassing the way we went out, and thinking they could take it to us. I've heard people say they're also like Leeds. So equally, I've heard as many people talk about them being a low block team as them being a Leeds type team with the energy and the attack. That might eventually be their downfall, because when your expectations of Arsenal are in the gutter, that's when we tend to rise up again, just to offer a glimmer of hope. Do you think there's any worry that Slavia Prague might, well, that 37 game run itself speaks for itself, but take their eye off the ball in a sense and not go with the approach they normally go with?
It's interesting because Arsenal are probably the one team that they really didn't want to come up against, and that includes Man United. I think they would have favoured any team, because I do think their number one approach to this game, irrespective of the opposition, would have been to press high and keep the opponent boxed in, which is what happened with Rangers in their first leg. Rangers couldn't get out of their own half. Slavia Prague were really good at keeping them in. But Arsenal was such a press-resistant team. That's the thing that's indisputable, right, against any fans, that Arsenal are really good at playing around a press. You could pass to the ball.
Sometimes, Alex, there's a couple of reminders recently that, the press does haunt us, but I know generally what you mean, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the one thing that Slavia Prague might be looking at and going, could we get exposed here? Because that's what happened against Chelsea, which I know it might seem like a bit of a weird thing to compare to 2 years ago, but they're essentially the same side. They're under the same manager. And what happened against Chelsea was they summarised themselves perfectly. In the second leg, they lost 4-3. They cut Chelsea apart in the second half, carving out great chances, scoring great goals, showing the quality of their players. But in the first half, they conceded 3 goals because they just carried on getting counter-attacked. And it was like holding back the sea at times. And you kind of think with Arsenal, I know Saka and Smith Rowe, I'm not sure if they're completely fit for this game. I read they were a doubt.
Yeah,
I think Saka would be really, really crucial in this game. So hoping for an Arsenal perspective, he's fit for it.
Well, I'm hoping both are fit, because I don't know if you saw our record recently with and without them, but 20 games without them, we've won 5. 10 games with them, we've won 7. So that speaks volumes in itself, I believe. So we're going to need one of them, if not both, against Slavia Prague for our attacking side to be there anyway. You know, we talked about that Chelsea. Was that a couple years ago on the way to the final with us? It was, wasn't it? Yeah. I remember that. How much of Slavia Prague improved since then? Has their squad massively changed, or is it a case of sticking together and you know, same? Is it the same manager?
Exact same manager, but they've lost 2 players. So for anyone who doesn't know, this is the team that West Ham fans previously loved, because it's where Vladimir Sufal and Thomas Souček came from.
Yeah,
and Souček was the one who dominated the Chelsea leg. So they've lost a couple of good players there, but they've replaced them really well in terms of quality. So there's 2 players which I can go into a bit more in a bit, but the 2 players that Arsenal should watch out for are the wingers. Slavia Prague play like a 4-1-4-1 formation, and their wingers, Peter Olejinka and Abdallah Sima, someone you might have heard of. They're really, really dangerous players. Sima was the one who scored the really good goal against Leicester from quite far out. 19-year-old Senegalese player. In his first season of senior football, he's contributed to 16 goals in 18 games in the Czech league. Pretty strong.
Cecil mentioned him earlier as well when I done a show with the other lads from AFTV, and he mentioned him as the biggest threat. So you're saying the wingers are the biggest threat, and as an Arsenal fan, listening to that, that's not what I want to hear, because considering Tierney's injury now, and on top of that, our choices for either side are Cedric, Chambers, and Bellerin. I think that's where we are most weak and most vulnerable on defensively. So what other threats do they pose, or is that the main? What about their striker?
So their striker is Jan Kuča. He's only got 4 goals in the Europa League, but as a threat, really. So those 2 players are the main individual ones. But what you should look out for with Slavia Prague, and it's what caught out Leicester, I think, is that they're very well coached and they're more dangerous as a unit moving forward. They're really good at creating chances, and they're really good at stopping play and catching the other team cold. So from Arsenal's perspective, I know David Luiz is out for this game, but it was kind of similar to what I was looking with Porto and Chelsea. I think both Chelsea and Arsenal, they need to set out their most organised defence, the one that's going to keep things together positionally and not give up too much space. You'll know way more about Arsenal than me, so I'm sure you'll know which players you'd want starting based off of that. But that's what you'd want to look at, the players who are going to keep it together rather than stopping any individual players.
So we're talking about their strengths, and you know, I think that they fall in line with our weaknesses defensively. What about their weaknesses? Where can we find success?
So their weaknesses is definitely when their press is played around, and I'm not overrating that in terms just saying, oh, maybe they're this progressive team. Slavia Prague committed the most fouls in the Europa League, and if you look at them, like when they're mapped out, they're really high up the pitch. But as soon as you play around that, that's when you can catch them cold, and they're caught with like 2 or 3 players at the back. It's what happened with Bayer Leverkusen in the group stage. They got battered by them because they carried on getting caught cold. And it's what didn't really happen against Leicester and Rangers. They were never counter-attacked. So with Arsenal, what they should be looking for is trying to attack really quickly and making sure the balls are a bit more direct so they can catch Slavia Prague before they fall back quite defensively. Because in defence, when they're all set out, they are pretty strong. They've got a defender called David Zima, a 20-year-old who's impressing. Someone else you might want to look out for if you're looking for players. Future Arsenal players, you never know. But the moment to catch him is in transition, when Arsenal should be winning the ball and straight away attacking directly.
That's where Emil Smith-Rowe and Saka will be missed if they're not part of it, because I think that's who bring the energy on the attacking side for us. Against Liverpool, out of the front 4, I'd say the one that gets any credit was Odegaard, because you could see him trying, you could see him initiating leadership, pressing, it just wasn't working around him. I think for him to excel, he needs an Emil Smith-Rowe, a Saka, or a Martinelli, who's definitely fit, because the energy around him, then we have a bit more of a quicker transition, we can step in between the lines. We're better because these players tend to drop back and help in the transition. That's where I think that we might, slip up if we don't play at least 2 of those 3, if possible.
Yeah, just to interject, I think Martinelli, you've mentioned that. I think he'd be a great player to play in this game because generally he's very good at driving straight at defense. Right, he still feels not raw necessarily, but he's got that energy that you speak of. I think he'd be great for this tie. And same with Aubameyang if you could catch him on the counter. I think, but you mentioned Odegaard. This might be a tougher game for him just because Slavia Prague are quite a physical side, and it's probably a sort of team, not to diminish him because he's proven he's very good at Arsenal.
Yeah.
But it's probably a different challenge he's going to face than perhaps he's used to. Quite a physical test, and he'll probably be man marked as well.
And again, that's why the other younger players around him offer the energy to take the attention away from him at times too, because they're so, and sometimes, well, not sometimes against Liverpool, more often than not against Liverpool, he was lethargic around him. It made it easier to focus on him because he's the primary threat. That's why I'd agree with Martinelli will be massive. And with Aubameyang anyway, I don't think no one wants to see him on the left after what we've just seen against Liverpool. Who would be the better option up front for Arsenal? Would it be to go with Oba, or would it be to maybe go with a Laka who can drop more, bring in other players, whereas Oba offers the threat in behind?
I think it would have to be Aubameyang because Lacazette, I quite like Lacazette, especially when he drops deep. But I think if you want to maximise the threat you're going to have against Slavia Prague, Lacazette might not be the right player because him dropping deep might kind of slow your attack down necessarily. Whereas Aubameyang, if he's getting straight in behind, that's a threat that Slavia Prague are going to have to make sure they counter. And I think even if Prague prepare for it and they drop deep, then you're negating them coming forward. So I think starting Aubameyang up front, he's definitely the one you should start. I think he's the biggest threat there.
Should we be worried?
Good question. I don't think you should be majorly worried just because, as I said at the start, this is Arsenal probably the one team they didn't want to face. This is Arsenal probably a team out of the teams left more built to face them, and that includes teams like Ajax, who you might associate with quick passing football. Arsenal probably a team they wouldn't have wanted to play here, but at the same time they have got players that Arteta shouldn't sleep on. And I mean, Arteta's going to be more prepared than me and you, obviously, so he'll be aware of how strong they are. Yeah. He'll be aware of how strong they are. So Arsenal just need to make sure they don't underestimate Slavia Prague's attack. And as long as they do that, they should get through to the next round.
No, I like that answer because I even debated Robbie about it recently when Robbie said he was worried about it. And I understand where that comes from, but I think that regardless of the result against Liverpool and the season we've had, we should be getting past Slavia Prague, in all honesty. And if we don't, then it's major questions of the players and the manager. And I think it's a pivotal moment for that group anyway, not only the players, the manager involved. So we're going to need a win. We might as well wrap this up with a prediction from you, Alex.
Go for it. It's at the Emirates first, isn't it? So I'm going to say it's going to be 2-1 Arsenal in the first leg. And in the second leg, assuming they win that one, it's probably going to be 1-0 Arsenal. And yeah, I think Slavia Prague will definitely score. And I will say as well, the overall prediction, I think this game's going to be really fun to watch. It's one that I'll be tuning into because I reckon both teams are going to have a lot of energy, and it'll be a Europa League tie at its best, I reckon.
Well, if what you're saying is correct and the wingers are the biggest threat, and right now our weakness is at the fullback area, then it's definitely going to be an exciting game. On the flip side, I predicted 3-0 earlier. But now you tell me that their wingers are the biggest threat. Yeah, I'm starting to think we might concede one, but I'm still confident of a victory at the Emirates that should see us through. That should make the second leg comfortable. I think 2-1 would be tight, and obviously taking it back there is definitely a bit of a problem, a bit more of a worry. But I think we're good. We should be good enough to do away with them this Thursday, and call it a day. Where can we find you at, Alex? Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at EuroExpert, and any other questions you want to have about Slavia Prague, anything more in depth or anything like that, just come to me and I'll make sure I give you the best answer possible.
There you go, people. At Euro Expert on Twitter. Follow up Alex if you have any questions. Get them through to him, and let us know your thoughts on this, preview on the Slavia Prague. Hopefully, I've learned something, so hopefully you guys have learned something too. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave us your thoughts, comments, share it.